Just read this book called The Parakeeting of London, which was all about these myths about why the parakeets are in London. It reminded me of this story that I was told in Brockley, like close to where I live. And I was looking up and I saw these parakeets. And this woman was like, "Oh, you know they're there because George Michael and Boy George released them from their flat." All of the songs that I recorded today, that I filmed today, they were written for a storytelling night, this thing called The Moth, which happens at the Union Chapel. And a friend of mine asked me to write some music. It like begins each half, just before there's this competitive storytelling thing. And they always have a theme. That's like a real gift. Because I think I'm not very good at just like pouring out my soul. You know, if someone says, write anything you want, I find that really difficult. If it's something that's really specific, like it has to be just for violin and it's got to be 3 minutes long and it's got to be about like homecoming, then that to me that's much easier, like working with creative restrictions. And then I just read this book called The Parakeeting of London, which was all about these myths about why the parakeets are in London. It reminded me of this story that I was told in Brockley, like close to where I live. And I was looking up and I saw these parakeets and this woman was like, "Oh, you know they're there because George Michael and Boy George released them from their flat." That's brilliant, that's gold. I'm having that. I thought about how you would mimic the sound of parakeets on the violin, but also I tried to kind of mimic the way that they fly, because there's this very beautiful kind of motions. I thought about how I could maybe sort of weave those lines together in some kind of piece, yeah. Songwriting is like, it's lots of, for me at least, I don't think there's one way of doing it, and I think it's different for everyone, but for me it's at least 3 different stages. And so I think I generally like have loads of notes on my phone. If I get an idea, I might be playing violin, I'll just record, and it could be like a little tiny fragment of stuff. And that could be a little bit of melody, it could be like a little bit of lyric, it could even just be a vibe actually, it could just be a sort of atmosphere. Usually I'm pretty useless at just doing it off my own bat, but if I have some kind of commission, some reason to write music, I know I have this kind of bank of stuff that I can go to and like draw on it as well. The other thing actually I think is really useful for songwriters is if you have a piece of music that you love, it's not like you copy it, but you sort of think about what it is about that piece of music that makes it incredible. What is the vibe? What is it doing? What's the job of it? Where does it sit in like a set list? And in that set, what is it doing? What role is it doing? And then you write something like that. So you kind of like steal the fire of an existing piece of music. Not necessarily, obviously none of the like melodic content or any of the chords, but just the kind of, the feeling that it elicits in you and the feeling that it causes in the audience, yeah. So The Moth, there are lots of regional rounds, but the grand final is always in the Union Chapel. And so I really love playing there. The acoustic is incredible. You're like onto a winner. The minute you put the bow on the string, it just kind of like fills the room. So that's probably my favorite venue that I've played at. And the sound is just, it's so beautiful there. And I've seen so many beautiful gigs there as well. So it's just a pleasure to be in that space.
Do you have any struggles with writing music?
Yeah, all the time. I don't think it's ever a sort of easy process. You've just got a blank sheet of paper in front of you and you have to write something and you have to start at the beginning and get to the end. And I've tried to kind of reframe that and think of it as you just have like a little seed and that grows into that thing and that grows into that thing. And you know, gradually it sort of becomes this weird beast of a song. Like every person, I'm sure. Well, maybe not every person, but certainly I have lots of problems with writing music. It's never an easy process, but weirdly it's enjoyable anyway. It feels like that weird and brilliant mix of like hard work and enjoyment. Sometimes people's conception of what it is to be a musician, they think that, you know, you just do this one thing, you write your own, you're this artist. And that's not really true for a lot of professional musicians, certainly the kind of professional musician that I am. So I do all sorts of things. I play in orchestras and I play with artists and I play in jazz ensembles and with my own music and in shows in the West. Like I do all sorts of things. And so sometimes music is like, it is a job, you know. It's a very rewarding job, but it is a way of kind of making a living. And other times there's more of a kind of sense of ownership and a sense of kind of play and a sense of freedom. So it's kind of, yeah, as some people call it, like a portfolio career, where you're just like, there's all these little bits that kind of come together, that inform each other, that come together to make a kind of a career, as it were.